Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Tag Team, the Pokemon Trading Card Game's premier podcasting duo. My name is Riley Hulbert, joined as always by my phenomenal friend, Mr. JW Kriewall. JW, how's it hanging?
Hey, it's going pretty well, Riley. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Well, I asked how it was hanging, not how it's going.
It is hanging very. What adjectives can I use to
Well, I don't
describe?
know. You can
It's
probably still
it's
say hanging well. Yeah.
it's hanging well. It's hanging 10.
It's doing a good job hanging.
You said it, not me.
Anything exciting going on in the world of Mr. Kriewall?
Yeah, well, we got the closing on the house in a week from tomorrow.
Week from tomorrow. Oh, let's
So I'll
go.
have keys in hand June 3rd.
There you go.
Yeah, so pretty exciting. So it's just kind of figuring out some things. We got to do some. I was talking to you before the cast, just doing like little things around the house, and getting all the furniture and things like that. And then we have to do like insurance, and we have to take care of just little things. But yeah, it's cool. It's been fun.
And what is the address of this house so I can make sure to stop by?
Yeah, sure. 86. Yeah. So it'll be free to hang mid June, early July.
Very exciting. Like a 4th of July kind of situation.
That's right. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
That's really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting houses now.
Well, it's about that time.
That time we're getting old.
I mean, Ohio's probably the only place you can get a house.
And even then, not for as reasonable of a price as you'd prefer.
That's right. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy out here. But anything new with you, Riley?
Yeah, things have been going pretty well. Obviously, I was at my family's last week. That was really fun. I got to see obviously my family. I got to see some friends who were local to the area. And it was good. It was refreshing. I think almost being separated from all of my closer friends who don't live in Madison for so long, I didn't realize how much I really missed it until I was like talking with my friend from Cincinnati, and we were just sitting down having like such a nice chat, and it just went on and on and on. You just miss those kind of moments. But, yeah, it was good. And this week has been rather uneventful so far, but there's a lot of things like brewing right now with work.
Gotcha.
Doing a virtual trip for one of my my clients right now, where I basically spend all day in a Zoom call with them.
Wow.
Kind of exhausting.
Yeah, no kidding.
But productive. So it's been good.
Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. And travel's starting to open back up for work as well. So
yeah,
into some of my my customers, clients over the next month. It'll be exciting.
Okay, cool. Where's the farthest that you're going?
On the immediate radar is Richmond. So.
And is that the trip that you're most excited about, or?
I have a couple of different clients. I think the Virginia one, I'd be most excited to meet people I'm working with in person.
Okay.
But it's probably not the one that needs me there the most.
Gotcha.
I have another project that's kind of struggling.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, I'm just excited for what's to come. I'm excited to start to return to normal a little bit. People.
I hear that. It's it's really cool. We're doing a little get together over Memorial Day weekend here in Ohio, and so I'm excited to see people that I haven't seen in over a year and a half now, which is just crazy.
It is really crazy to like verbalize it like that, like it's so bizarre.
It is. It truly is. So, well, we got a lot to talk about today, Riley, as always. So why don't we start it off with some of the newer cards that are being revealed? There's some bangers out there, both in terms of the strength of the card and the art of the card.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Eevee Heroes set is the big one on the radar right now in Japan. Slowly getting revealed over the last few weeks here. Talked about it a lot on the cast. Not too many brand new cards have been revealed in the last week. there's one that is catching a lot of people's eyes, and that is going to be the Big Shake. Is that what it's translated to?
Yeah. Well, yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly.
It's a shaker bottle,
it's
like a workout
the
shaker
Vigor
bottle.
Shake.
Vigor Shake. Yeah, it's a workout shaker bottle, and it has a crazy effect where you play it to evolve a Pokemon, even if it's the first turn that Pokemon is in play, and then your turn instantly ends. Now, if you're thinking about this from just like a pure balance standpoint, like it might not immediately jump out at you until you think about some of the cards it can be paired with. You're thinking of the Altarias of the world, the Glaceon VMAXs of the world, and also expanded. We're looking once again at things like Trevenant potentially having a way to get that turn 1 item lock before your opponent gets to play. So JW, what are your thoughts? There's been a lot of discussion online over the last couple of days about Vigor Shake. Do you think this card is going to be too powerful and expanded?
I personally do, yes. Going from, with my history from the kind of Trevenant Wally era, which was already very oppressive on its own, and then so oppressive to the point that they had to ban Wally in the expanded format. I just see Vigor Shake as being something that I doubt Pokemon will nerf it in any way. Maybe they could. I'm scared about the clause that says you can do it on your first turn or when that Pokemon was laid down. That just seems very frustrating to deal with. But yes, I do see this card being something that either is banned in the expanded format or has like the abusable cards banned. Because I think the idea is pretty reasonable, right? You have this item card that can evolve Pokemon, right? That's kind of the crux of the Pokemon, a video game, right? You evolve your Pokemon, you make them stronger, and they battle, right? So okay, that kind of fits in with that. Like Rare Candy, same kind of idea, right? You're evolving your Pokemon. That's a core tenet of the game. But this is abusable. You can use it on that first turn. You can use it when those Pokemon get immediately laid down to the field. So you're going to have some broken combos, in the standard format. Even, I'm thinking about Weezing, thinking about Glaceon,
Weezing,
expanded, thinking about Trevenant. It just doesn't seem like it would benefit the format to have it available.
I'm inclined to agree. There's definitely a lot of broken potential in the card, and it's one of those cards that's not super well future proofed either. I always hate the cards that limit the scope of what they're able to make in the future. Like, it makes it much harder to justify a powerful ability on a stage 1 that interacts with your opponent if you can get it out before they can even play.
Right.
Kind of a follow-up question I have specifically regarding expanded is, a lot of people are talking about that in the context of Trevenant. Do we think that Trevenant is still like a viable force with Vigor Shake added? The reason I ask that is that I feel like expanded decks have slowly adapted to handle item lock better, and the decks are much tankier. So the threat of Silent Fear seems less than it may have been in the past. But maybe I'm overlooking it.
Well, that's fair enough. But you could also play Glaceon and Weezing in expanded too. The Vigor Shake opens up the possibility of playing other things, essentially, right? You're not just Trevenant is not just the only kind of abusable combo, but you can port over anything that you want. So taking all abilities away on that first few turns seems really good, because a lot of expanded format cards or a lot of expanded format decks are their main form of draw, I would argue, is
that is true.
The ability.
That is true. But then you also have the Honchkrow deck does a similar thing.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair with Silent Lab, you mean? Yeah. Well, Honchkrow is pretty oppressive, I would say. I don't think anyone really enjoys having Honchkrow available.
I don't disagree, but I think I'd also say that Weezing Honchkrow Lab combo.
True. And that's fair. I mean, the expanded format is there's a lot of things wrong with the expanded format, I would say.
Expanded's not in the best place. Maybe we'll talk about that in the next few episodes.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode for sure.
Yeah, it's just interesting. And I was also curious, this card is most key to get it off on the first turn of the game first. So without access to a supporter, how would you build your deck to reliably use it?
Use this card in particular? Are we talking in expanded?
In either format, but focusing on expanded.
Yeah, so if you're an expanded, I mean, you probably don't play a high count, maybe like 1 or 2. Well, probably about 2, maybe 2 to 3. Anyway, not a full count, right? Because they're going to be weaker the longer the game goes on. But then you probably play some kind of support for finding that card, be it trainer's mail or be it order pad, something like that, that's going to give you that additional dig so that you can find those cards somewhat reliably. You can find that Vigor Shake somewhat reliably, but you're not dedicating 4 copies of your deck to that card. Now, if that evolution is your main strategy, and you have some other kind of combination there that would make that first turn evolution like absolutely necessary, then sure, yeah, do the 4. I'm not thinking of anything right off the bat. I would, again, initially start my testing with the card as being kind of a 2 of, maybe a 3 of, and then supplement that with cards that would be better in later stages of the game.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I definitely agree. Like, order pad is probably the way to actually get it out of your deck, probably in conjunction with trainer's mail. I just wonder like how reliably, and maybe someone can map that out, like how reliably you can get it into your opening first.
Yeah, and I think generally speaking, to bring up your point of saying like, well, do you think that there are already a lot of oppressive combos, and yet they maybe don't see as much play? So are people overreacting? I think generally we tend to, as a community, and maybe just as a trading card game audience, like just generally speaking, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't know. I'm sure everyone has kind of, oh my gosh, this new card's going to break everything. I feel like it's been a while since that's happened in Pokemon, where just one card has completely like ruined a format, or at least in standard. I can't remember the last time. Maybe you could argue the tag teams, but I guess the release of Zacian, maybe. But even then, it's not like it was one deck that just oppressed everything. And I guess you could argue that in the expanded format, that kind of stall is ruining that format. But again, that's a whole topic for another day.
And stall wouldn't benefit from it either.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's just interesting food for thought. I think we can table the expanded conversation, because I think there's a lot to talk about there about how that format has evolved, and how it's looking recently. But I do want to talk about just some of the gorgeous arts that we have in Heroes. That, I mean, aesthetically, this has got to be one of the best sets I've ever seen. This is, the cards from their basics to their full arts to their special arts are all gorgeous.
Yeah, I completely agree. They really went out. I mean, I want to say on a limb, because some of these arts are just kind of things that I haven't really seen from a Pokemon card. You have like Sylveon passing out cakes. You have Flareon cozying up next to the fire. Like, they have such a personality to them, and such a life and vitality. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely like stuff going on in the lives of these cards, which is really fun.
A huge story in every single secret rare here.
So I thought it would be fun. Take a look at all these Vs and VMAXs for the Eevees and pick out what your favorite, your basic V special art is, and what your favorite VMAX special art is, because they all have a special art. I don't know if you have any in mind, but I can start with kind of my personal takes.
Yeah.
In terms of the basic Vs, I love the Sylveon. Passing out the cakes, the art is really clean. It is just so cute. Like, I would happily accept a little cupcake from that Sylveon. But
did you know that all of the basic V secret rares, they're all tied into Beauty and the Beast? Did you know that? The theming is Beauty and the Beast, right? You got the woods with the Leafeon curling up next to the fire with the Flareon. You got the bookstore with
how does Jolteon fit into that?
Okay, maybe Jolteon, maybe Umbreon doesn't fit into that. Those, they're the options out.
But I do see like a couple of things that maybe fit in with that theme. And for the V Max, and I also, one thing I want to call out about the V Max is I love how they play into the V Max actually being huge in the secret Eevee
finally
arts. Like they are in like a physical space that like as a regular person you can identify with, and they're just gigantic.
Right.
Of those, there's a lot of them that I like, and the Espeon is probably my favorite, but we've already talked about that one. Otherwise, I really love the Umbreon, mostly because, and we were talking about this right before the cast, I love like recurring themes in the card art, and Umbreon's back on his classic tower, except now it is absolutely massive, like dwarfing the tower with its size. I just think that's such a cool like reference to the previous Umbreon arts. It's really cool to see like every Umbreon card kind of tying back to that.
Yeah, it's got a great little, artwork going on in terms of just the style, the feel of it. Really dark, really kind of moody, and neat.
Yeah,
card.
I like how the yellow of the lights shining through the building like matches Umbreon. It's definitely very intentionally and well designed. I love it.
Yeah, it's very cool. So, for me, I have a couple of different favorites. I'd say my favorite V Secret Rare is probably the Glaceon, sitting on a little bench, contemplating life. I don't know, contemplating their next adventure. Definitely just kind of moseying over there. It looks like you're waiting for mom at school. Just kind of not a care in the world. And then I think this is going to be probably most people's least favorite, but to me, this reminds me of one of my favorite games, Scythe. But I love the Leafeon VMAX.
Oh, I like the Leafeon quite a bit, actually.
Really?
It's just something about it's really fun. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like doing manual labor. Like, yeah, let's get those Pokemon working. We're gonna spend all this time and money and energy training them up. Let's put them to work.
It just has like a very, someone tweeted about this as well, it has a very Midwest vibe, like I could, like reminds me of driving through Ohio.
Super Midwest vibe. It is great.
Oh, I like that take. That's awesome. Any of the trainers jump out at you?
Any of the trainers from the set? Not particularly, other than, of course, the Shake.
I do want to call out, I love the Turfield City Gym special art, gold art. Really, really cool looking. I'm glad to see them like continue doing stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we haven't seen. They skipped a set at least, of doing those stadiums in that gold. So looks really clean, really nice. Can't wait to get my. I probably won't. I was about to say I can't wait to get my hands on that, but that's probably above my pay grade. There's just so many nice cards. You have to kind of pick and choose. I'm going to try to get my hands on.
Talked about are above our pay grade.
Yeah. I mean, true. I mean, it's amazing, right? Because the evolutions normally are pretty expensive, just on the whole. Like pretty much every evolution card is expensive, and then you add into the fact that they're all, just extraordinarily well done, and that's gonna make the price skyrocket for sure.
Absolutely agree. Any other closing thoughts on Eevee Heroes?
No, it looks like a really cool set. I'm excited to see this. This set just completely based around the evolutions. I'm struggling to remember another set that has this kind of Eevee theme where they're all pretty much represented here. So I'm gonna be excited to see how this one plays out.
A couple other like more announcements closer to home, I guess you could say. So there is a new Trainer's Toolkit coming out, which will have Crobat in it. So if you are lacking on Crobats, this is a great way to refuel your collection, just like we did with the Denes. And there is a Marnie premium trainer collection where you can get those full arts of Marnie, those alternate arts that were revealed recently in Japan in an all new package. It's kind of like a little milk carton. And last but not least, Chilling Reign is just on the horizon here. We're looking at the next few weeks for pre-releases and the actual set drops. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure to go on your favorite website, fullgripgames.com, and fullgrip code, so you can get all those pre-orders in.
Cool. Great plug.
So let's jump right into our card of the day. JW, what do you got for us?
Yes. Okay. Well, this is a card that I think I'm going to try this week to give you the Pokedex entry and see if you can guess the Pokemon.
Oh, yeah. I'm down.
So this is a Pokemon that this was kind of one of my first decks that I made when I got back into the game in high school, right? I was playing with friends, had all these old cards, and I threw this deck together with this kind of being maybe not the centerpiece, but certainly a very integral part of the deck.
Sure.
And so I'll give you the Pokedex entry and see if you can't figure it out. So while it loves floral honey, it won't gather any itself. Instead, it plots to steal some from Combee. Now, I know your first inclination there is to say, like, well, it's not, Combee, so it has to be Vespiquen, but that's not it. It's not in that.
My first thought was not Vespiquen.
Family. Really? Okay. All right. Well, what do you got?
I want to Heracross.
Oh, I feel like that's a great guess, but that is not correct.
What is it?
Do you really don't want one more?
One more guess?
Yeah.
Right? Eddie, you're so nervous.
Oh, no. Okay, this one, it's hard. It's hard. To be fair, it's really hard. So this one is Mothim.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I was like trying to think of, because in Diamond and Pearl, the games, you could put honey on trees, and like certain Pokemon would be attracted to it. So I was kind of like trying to go through what those Pokemon might be in my head.
Is Mothim one of those?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it makes sense that it would be, which is why I said it makes sense.
See, okay, fair enough. I have never played Diamond and Pearl.
Maybe you can play the remake when.
I think so. Yeah, I think that'd be really fun. So this Mothim from the Arceus set it works with the whole. So the whole idea of the deck was to get out the Mothim. It evolves from Burmy. Burmy evolves into Wormadam. Wormadam had, like, if I remember right, some kind of evolution ability where it could evolve on the first turn and any turn that you play the Burmy. So you could just like spam Wormadams, and they all had, different typings, of course. So you could hit your opponent for weakness on, whatever would be the optimal type, right? And that was a whole deck. So this Mothim was cool because you could search your deck for these Burmies and Wormadams with the first attack. It was for no cost, Cloak Party. And then you could attach energy to them, so you could get the Wormadams built up here over the course of the game with the energy assist. It's kind of similar to Cinccino's attack in current standard. So I don't know, just a really cool card, one that I really enjoy.
That is cool. I vaguely know the Wormadam cards that you're talking about. I definitely know the Burmy.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen all three of the Wormadam. That's a fun deck.
Yeah, super fun. Had a really good time with it.
I love that. I like the introduction with the Pokedex entry. That's something I think we'll have to keep that on going.
Well, see, now I'm not going to be able. I'm just so bad at it. I'm probably going to embarrass myself.
That's okay. I think the listeners would enjoy some JW embarrassment.
Well, fair enough.
So let's jump into the competitive half of the cast then. Talk about Players Cup 4. So
let's do it.
Qualification period is now over. JW, I'm assuming that you made it through with your decent point total at the end of the day.
You know what? I don't think I did.
How did you end?
I ended with 92. You know what the cutoff was?
It's like 94 or 5.
No, 93.
Is it really 93? Well, maybe.
At least the last that I checked, 93 was the cutoff. We don't know. For some of the other Players Cups, there were some disqualifications.
That's what I was
Things
gonna
like,
say.
juniors and seniors maybe getting points or keys where they, just they can't play really due to more so legal reasons than anything. Not that they're not good enough, not that Pokemon is actively trying to exclude, but just because there are some legality things when you're giving away money and holding competitions, and it gets kind of hairy when you include the younger people. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I said this to everyone, and especially in Players Cup 3, I was like super locked in. Players Cup 4, I felt like I was pretty locked in for most of the keys. I think I played a little worse in Players Cup 4 than in Players Cup 3, but 40-point difference, is pretty incredible, and I think speaks a lot to kind of what I felt the format was like. But to a lot of people, like, you got to take every game, and play it like as well as you can, right?
Yeah.
Because if I end up missing out, I'll have missed out by 1 point, right? That's literally one game was the difference here between making it in and making it out. Am I crushed? No. I mean, am I upset? Yeah, I mean, I'd love to play, but I didn't make it, presumably, at this point in time, and I'll just have to live with that.
It was those Rage Q top 8s.
What's that?
It was the Rage Q ups and getting top 8s.
Yeah, but I don't think I don't think I played that badly. In those Rage Q ups.
VODs on those.
What's that?
Someone get the clips.
Yeah, I know, for real. Yeah, I definitely did kind of like throw like one of my last few keys for sure. But what do I chalk it up to? I chalk it up to just kind of Pikarom being a very not good deck in the keys that I played it in. In the meta that I saw it, in the keys that I played, I think I went with Pikarom. And keep in mind, you say like, well, you probably didn't play Pikarom correctly. Pikarom was the only deck that I played for Players Cup 3, and I was 13th, right? So like, take that argument. You're listening to this right now, and you're like, he just doesn't know how to play Pikarom. Take that out your mouth right now. But I ended up, playing Pikarom, and I think I'll have to go back and run the numbers, but I think I ended up, with like a 1.25 point per tournament total with Pikarom, or like just something really stupidly low. And I was just finding myself getting eaten up by the Eternatus's and the Urshifu decks and like the single strike Urshifu decks. It was just not good. Anytime I queued up Pikarom, things were going south quickly, just purely based on the matchup. Because Pikarom is one of those decks that you have the Crushing Hammer, you have the Reset Stamp. So in like 85% of the matchups, you're going to have some chance to come back, right? You get a heads on a Crushing Hammer at the right time. You Reset Stamp your opponent down to the low. You get a Tag Bolt or an Alolan Raichu, attack, and you can make your way back. But but I just wasn't finding that to be the case. And it really kind of led me astray.
Yeah.
So
I feel you there. The meta was definitely rough for Pika, and I played as well. I actually ended up not finishing mine because someone in our group chat made like an offhand comment about the dates of the Players Cup, so I ended up looking at it. I realized I'm going to be traveling that weekend. So I kind of like lost motivation. I still kind of wanted to do it just to play the game, but then
of course.
The thing that pushed me over the edge was I had 2 tournaments in a row where all 3 rounds were ADP. And I'm like, for the love of the game, I can't even do this.
Right. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, I know you were very swamped over the last month.
I have been, and it's fine. I played in the last 2 Players Cups. I don't mind sitting one out. But the meta was very hostile for Pikarom in the keys that I did play. Outside of the 2 like ADP tournaments that I played in. There's a lot of Eternatus, a lot of Urshifu. single and rapid strike that I ran into. Just like a lot of ugly stuff going on, and it wasn't especially satisfying to queue up with the Pikarom into those. And if I wasn't playing those, I was playing a mirror. So it was just like, it was kind of ugly. I was averaging decently with my keys, but I on track to make it with the I played, but it just would have taken a couple tournaments to face a fighting deck in those first couple rounds for things.
Right, absolutely.
So yeah, I definitely was a little bit of hostile of a meta. I don't think I would have not played Pikarom. I was like, as I was playing, I was trying to think like, once I hit the third Eternatus, I'm like, should I switch to like something else? And I just couldn't think of anything better. Although I will say the meta it's definitely shifting a lot. Like over the weeks, I feel like every week the meta feels a little different, and it goes in these weird cycles. So right now, people are really invigorated with Victini, with the new Galarian Rapidash is definitely gaining steam. And as like a response to that, we see people playing these pure Altaria decks pretty much with Kangaskhan. Like what is going on with the meta?
It's very unusual right now. I would say too, and to kind of go off that point, it's like if I were to play, if I would have played, I think my keys at the beginning of the Players' Cup, I think I have a very different outcome than kind of spreading it out over the course of the tournament. Just because, like you're saying, people were getting a little bit more experimental. We were seeing, Altaria builds. We were seeing just more kind of, I was seeing more single strike towards the end than, towards the beginning. Like they're just, people were being less meta and a little more rogue. And I think that hurts, it's hard to play into that. I saw more stall in the second half than I did in the first half. It's just these kinds of things where like, you're absolutely right. The meta was shifting pretty significantly throughout the course of the tournament.
I would agree. And I mean, you see that in the rest of the tournaments that are going on right now as well. It's just all sorts of craziness in the meta, which is cool. It's exciting to see that like the meta is flexible enough that it's not solved in the first 2 weeks of playing it. You do love to see that. So, I mean, I'm excited for what's going on right now. I'm excited to see what the continued addition of new cards and Chilling Reign continues to do to the meta. All that aside, though, our individual performances aside, the Players' Cup, I guess the qualification period proper is starting in a couple of weeks here. JW, do you have anything in particular that you would have on your radar heading into that event, given the shifts that we've seen in the last weeks?
Yeah, I would be a pretty big fan of playing playing Rapid Strike Urshifu right now. I think that deck has a lot of options available to it. I think it can beat pretty much anything aside from, something like Luke Metal. I think would be a particularly difficult matchup. And I also don't hate ADP. ADP is just kind of a that dark cloud, but I think it's well positioned now more than almost any other time to perform well, and we've just continued to see it play well, and it just doesn't have a particularly terrible matchup. Although I wouldn't like to face too much Pikarom or Eternatus, but you can win at anything. It takes pretty favorable matchups into the most tag team decks. Mewtwo. And any other tag team decks out there. So I like that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I would agree. I think Rapid Strike would probably be my top choice if I was playing in the next round at the moment. That might rapidly shift though over the next few weeks as things continue to evolve. I do think I would include a Phoebe in my Rapid Strike for that event just to try and get a little bit of an edge against Altarias and
yeah, for sure. And I think, one Phoebe into an Altaria deck, I think should be enough, right? If you can do it early enough, you can wipe their board.
I think the one thing you have to be careful about is the Kangaskhan, not on your Rapid Strike, but on your Mewtwo.
Right.
So you have to be careful to like either make sure they have a limited hand size or scoop up your Mewtwo like the turn that you Eevee and then put it down and scoop it up.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just those little things, like being deliberate about when you scoop up net, make a big difference. Like, it might not seem like it in the heat of the moment, like why would they boss the Mewtwo? But that's like totally an out. Same thing with like Luke Metal is you can target down that Mewtwo, and then all of a sudden your Phoebe's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really great point. There's a lot of decisions that you have to make with the Rapid Strike. That's a huge one. Just being cognizant of your switching outs, where you put the air balloon, that can make a huge difference, right? Are you going to put it on the thing that you're going to attack with? Are you going to put it on something on the bench? That has or could have a pretty big impact on how you do as well. So if you are planning on playing Rapid Strike or Urshifu, just make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you're well versed with the deck if you're playing at stage 2.
And you call it ADP. What do you think makes ADP especially well positioned in this meta versus previous ones? A little less hot.
Yeah, I think so. There's, I think just generally less Crushing Hammer, which is just kind of that general counter to ADP. Mm-hmm. You say, okay, there's Crushing Hammer and Pikarom. Well, that's always been there. And then you say, oh, there's Crushing Hammer and Eternatus. Well, to an extent, that's always been there, but Eternatus is not
and it's not always there in Eternatus either.
Yeah, and that's fair too. But that's not a particularly good matchup anyway. But you're seeing a lot of these kind of Mewtwo decks rise again, right? Really strong, or can be really strong for ADP. You're seeing just like kind of more random decks, I would say. You're seeing like the Rillabooms of the world kind of, perform well. You're seeing things like, anyway, just to say, like, there's a lot. It's such a widespread metagame.
Yeah.
That ADP can handle so many things. The Blacephalons, right? Even something like Victini VMAX, you're going to have a pretty decent time there if you can just continually attack with your ADP. So a lot of decent matchups in the field is so spread out.
I do kind of agree with that. I mean, ADP is obviously the destroyer of the rogue deck, like taking down the random miscellaneous decks. And it has a pretty close matchup, I would say, against Rapid Strike. Like very very tempo dependent, like who can get the first hit off first, or who can Ultra Creation first. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely see ADP having a decent position in this metagame.
Yeah,
really good against the decks that are good against Rapid Strike as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So it kind of benefits from Rapid Strike's existence in general. Any other decks that you would have high on your radar right now? Like maybe if the meta shifted a particular way, you would consider it?
I would consider Firebox. So like Charizard, Blacephalon based deck, Welder deck. I would consider that. Similarly, I would consider a Welder based Victini deck. Both of those seem like pretty decent, kind of decks in the format right now. Just you have strong matchups there with the Victini deck against any V deck. So your Rapid Strikes, you can definitely do some damage early, do damage against Eternatus real early, take those early knockouts and really stymie their board setup. The way that things are going, I like Victini a lot.
Yeah, I actually think if I were to play a Water deck, I would prefer like a Tempo Zard, like Charizard Blacephalon kind of deck versus a Victini. But I think that comes down to preference and like how you'd expect the meta to be as well. Both are certainly viable options.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy just how many decks you can play. I think about like you look at Azul, right, and it seems like every other day he's playing just some different deck to a tournament. He's taking it, and then he's like making top cut or top 8.
And there's always a
winning
card in there. It's
yeah, and it's like it's really a testament to like, well, the metagame matters to an extent, and you just have to play a deck that you're comfortable with and outplay your opponents. And
it's like your deck needs to hit a certain threshold of power and consistency, and you need to play it well. And if you do those things, then you might not get there every single time because luck is obviously a factor. But if you do those things, then you'll get there some amount of time at least.
Yeah, completely agree.
Awesome. So, I mean, I think those are some really solid thoughts on kind of where we are and where we expect things to be the next few weeks, I think now is a great time to kind of move into chat questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I have a question for you, Riley.
go for it.
When are you planning on going back into in real life play? Like, what's your kind of timeline?
Um, that's a good question. I guess it'll depend on first what happens like locally, because I would first only really be comfortable like a local event. I am fully vaccinated. I have been for about a month now, so as far as that goes, I'm ready for in-person events. I think I would
Yep.
want Pokemon to hold off on larger stuff for at least a little bit here, and like give not only like North America but like the rest of the world time to kind of catch up on vaccinations. We had a really quick rollout in the U.S.
Yep.
As a byproduct of like living in the country where they were produced. Um, but I would be comfortable like relatively soon going to something local and starting to play cards again. I have so much more like satisfaction just playing and holding real cards and interacting with people. Not that I don't like the online game. In the online game, I do play it a lot just because it's a nice way to just like pass time. But
Yep.
so I don't know. I don't know what my local's plan for rollout is either, as like Madison is to get to a pretty good place for COVID.
Sure.
I guess, do you have a timeline in mind, or are you kind of
No,
feeling it out as
I was
well?
just curious. I don't mean to I don't want to influence people. I think one way or the other. Just knowing like the breadth that our audience, that we have in our audience, and just knowing that there are a lot of people in very different places. So I don't want to be like, don't go to something, because I do think that a return to normalcy is healthy and normal. But I also don't want to be like, yeah, go to everything, because that might. I still think that there's room to be cautious, be safe. We're still in kind of these early stages of seeing the results of people going back to normal.
Yeah.
There might be some unforeseen consequence of that. So like, on the other hand, don't rush into anything, right? So kind of walking that middle path. But I would love to go to an in-person event, probably a local, something like a League Cup, League Challenge, by, I don't know, hopefully by Thanksgiving is kind of my
Yeah,
target.
that's kind of
So
something. I was kind of thinking like towards the end of the year is like come back. Um,
yeah.
I will say, regardless, like do get vaccinated if you can qualify. Like work and stay keep your hygiene habits. Like I think COVID-19 introduced some really good hygiene habits of people. Like please continue washing your hands.
Yeah, right.
I think that'll make the whole tournament experience better for everyone.
Yeah,
If you've ever been
absolutely.
to a regional and had the post-regional disease, then you,
I
know what I'm
have
talking
plenty
about.
of times. Yes.
Pretty much
Yes,
every
plenty
regional, you come back with the disease.
We got to make a name for it.
I was trying to, but in the heat of the moment, I was trying to come up with like an alliteration. I couldn't think of anything with an R, so
Gotcha.
so it was a little, but yeah, continue to keep up the good habits, get vaccinated if you can qualify, and let's all work together to make everybody have the chance to come back.
Let's do it.
Um, Jumping into chat, I see a question here from Manderson6545, and he asks, would you guys prefer the current VMAX mechanic or previous mechanics like breaks or level X's? I think they're a little bit different. I think VMAXs are a little more comparable to like a Mega, but um, I think it depends. Like Pokemon, I prefer having evolution versus not as like a primary mechanic is what I'll say. Like I prefer having something like a VMAX be a dominant mechanic to just using like basic EXs.
Yeah.
In my general preference, I think I would also prefer the evolution a little bit more robust, kind of like breaks or level X's. But I think given the current trajectory of the game, we're looking at prize Pokemon premier archetype, so I think it's more likely we.
Yeah. I think if it were to be a level X type effect where it could only happen in the active, it would have to be much stronger comparatively to the rest of the cards in the format. So I don't know if I would really like that, because I feel like they're already fairly strong. but they're not strong enough to have to overcome, being active and having that kind of stipulation. So, what would I prefer? I don't know that I'd prefer to have like Eternatus be a break either, right? Because that's another stage of evolving. It'd be curious to see how that would affect, the game, right? Introducing essentially like an additional turn into the games, but I don't know that it would really matter that much. It's just kind of fun to speculate, but I think what they're doing is okay. I don't know that I would. I think it's okay for what for what they have. I don't know that we necessarily would want to have a level X, or we would want to have a break mechanic, just given how kind of cumbersome they can be.
Yeah, and I would say like even less than like having a level X or break. What I would most is like a return to like the speed of like the original level X format, where things were more slower and more methodical, and like you had chances to evolve more.
Yeah, and that's fair. It'd just be hard to see how that kind of like fits in, with things. And I think especially right now, if we saw that VMAXs were like breaks and they took an additional turn to really ramp up, then we probably would just see the entire meta dominated by tag teams.
I mean, I don't disagree, and that's why I specifically called out like the meta. I would rather have something that evolves than nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate because the problem is, without like completely power creeping your stage 1 and 2s, the only way to kind of like reset that to have multiple sets in a row that are kind of underwhelming for like future proofing, like in a year from now standard will be good, but the cards that come out for the next 6 months are going to be crap. So I don't think Pokemon's going to be great. Wallace asks, how do you guys feel about the current discourse around stall and expanded? I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with expanded and how it's developed, so I think we're going to save that for a future episode.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, just to touch on that question though, I do generally agree that there need to be some changes to expanded to make it playable.
I would generally agree with that as well.
Even just going on the ladder, it's just a cesspool. Like it's impossible. It literally is impossible to test in the expanded format, because people are just playing, the degenerate things.
For points,
the easy wins, or scooping early if they don't have a good matchup. Like it's just really really hard right now for expanded format. So I will say I generally agree with the discourse that it's not a fun format and needs some fixing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then Duncan PTCG doesn't ask a question, but has commented that their area has one of the highest vaccination rates in the country, but locals haven't started yet. So it's interesting to see how things kind of proceed in various areas. I would agree with that, but I think slow and steady will win the race in the long run here. Keeping our heads high, enjoying the online scene that we have, which is honestly grown to be very robust here in Pokemon. We'll make a triumphant return together.
Yes, hopefully. I can't wait to see what the scene looks like. It's crazy.
I will be very curious to see how it translates to real life play.
Yeah,
and I'll also be curious to see does the online scene sustain itself post like real play coming back.
Sure, I have a feeling it will. Not to the extent that we're currently seeing, obviously, but I think to a pretty large extent. We'll see probably a consolidation of powers. We've already kind of seen that, but we'll see even more of a consolidation. The kind of smaller tournaments will get kind of just sucked in by the larger tournaments, and we'll have probably fewer, but there will still be that online presence. I'm very confident. Things like the Sunday Open
box.
Well, things like the Sunday Open are great. Things like the chill tournaments once a week or twice a week. Like we'll still see that.
Well, I think what's interesting as well is like the addition of weekday online tournaments, which can be run a little more freely than person event and more quickly. It gives you like a lot more opportunities to kind of like test out your decks in like a real competitive setting,
without having to leave.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see, like, as well, how this affects the the evolution of the meta in real life. Like post sanctioned play returning, I imagine that metas will be developed a lot quicker because people will be taking online a lot more.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. Yeah, it's really just a fascinating time, and I can't wait to see. Yeah, like you said, where the competitive meta goes with when we have both IRL and online tournaments.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fantastic episode with you, Mr. JW. Be sure to check us all out on social media. On Twitter, it's going to be at Smiles of Riles, at Real John Walter, and check out the podcast. That's Ag Tag Team Pokemon. And if you want to catch us live, you can catch us here on Twitch, twitch.tv/Munner. Or if you want to check out JW's amazing streams, that's twitch.tv/FlexDaddyRighteous.
You can make me feel a lot better about whiffing the Players' Cup 4 by 1 point if you just go and leave a very nice review for us on iTunes, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts.
True. A true statement has never been said. Well, thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate every single one of you, and we will catch you all next time. Peace.
See ya.